Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Rage and welcome to a bite-sized review. Today we are going to be talking about the Evil Within Executioner DLC. Now, as you guys know, I just finished the Evil Within. I beat it like yesterday, made a review for it. And tonight I tried to play all three DLCs for the Evil Within, but the first two DLCs, which is basically like the DLCs where you play as Julie Kidman, Sebastian's mysterious partner, both of those DLCs were garbage. I could not stand both of those DLCs. I was barely even able to play the first one because of how bad it was. It is literally just a boring stealth simulator. And for the most part, the stealth in the Evil Within, like the main game, the stealth worked okay, but in the assignment DLC and the consequence DLC, it was fucking garbage. So those two previous DLCs, they're garbage. I'm not going to review those, and I will say right now, they fucking sucked. But the final DLC for the Evil Within, the Executioner DLC, this did not suck. Not that much anyways. I mean, is this an amazing DLC? No, but is it a very, very solid DLC? Very much yes. And that's why we're talking about it today. So basically in this DLC, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but in this DLC, you basically play as one of the big bosses from the main game, the Executioner, or the Keeper, or Boxhead Man, whatever the fuck you want to call him. I mean, this man has more names than fucking any other villain in this game, whatever. But anyways, Boxman, Executioner, one of the big bosses from the original game, and kind of the face of the Evil Within. He is known as being very reminiscent of Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. He is definitely my favorite villain from the Evil Within games because he was in the second as well. Spoilers if you didn't know. And playing as him in this DLC, I will admit, playing as the Keeper, the Executioner, Boxhead Man, it's fun. I'm just gonna call him Boxhead Man. Playing as the Boxhead Man, it's pretty fun. This DLC is a very, very fun DLC, but there are some problems with it. So I'm gonna start off with those real quick. The first problem, in my opinion, is the controls are a little clunky. It takes a little while to get used to the controls. It also is played in a first-person perspective, so this does make the game a first-person shooter. And one quick positive is this DLC really does change the game. Like, not only is this DLC not survival horror like the main game, this DLC is pretty much a beat-em-up in terms of gameplay. So this DLC could not change the game any more than it already has, because this DLC is extremely different from the main game. So if you were expecting this DLC to be like similar to the main game, like, you know, maybe third person or like, you know, still have scary moments, it's not. All right, this is pretty much a beat 'em up version of the Evil Within, and it is pretty fun. Besides those clunky controls, there is not a whole lot of other issues with this DLC, except for the length. This DLC is about, depending on how long you take to beat the bosses, this DLC is about 40 to 50 minutes long, depending on how long you take. I've seen people speedrun this and beat it in like 20 minutes, so the DLC is pretty short, unfortunately, but that's okay. You know, it's only like $4, so you can't really expect a lot from that, but in terms of gameplay, like I said, it is pretty much a beat 'em up. So as the Keeper, you basically are just beating the shit and brutally killing the monsters from the first Evil Within. And one cool thing we get here is we also do get a couple of different enemy types that were not seen in the main game, so that's cool. In terms of combat, the combat is actually still pretty intense as well. You know, you still got that classic intense Evil Within combat, but unlike the first game where you were using guns and Sebastian's fist and matches, in this game, obviously, you are a lot more powerful. And you feel powerful too. Like, you have the feeling that you are playing as a big guy with a giant ass hammer. And the game makes you feel like that with every hit you take, with every skull you crush, with every face you stomp in. The gameplay is pretty damn fun. The only thing that's really clunky is honestly the movements. Like, the movement is a bit clunky. It may mess you up in some aspects, but it's nothing compared to Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was a garbage game because of its horrible controls, and this game's controls, don't worry, they are not RE4 bad, okay? They're not that bad. There's no tank controls. But yeah, like I was saying, in terms of combat, the combat is still pretty intense. The executions for the Executioner are also pretty damn gory as well. You even get to perform some of the executions from the main game when the keeper kills you in the main game. So it's good to see his killing animations make a glorifying comeback in this DLC. But yeah, the combat is pretty fun. Like, there are moments in this DLC where you are facing hordes of enemies, just like in the first game, but instead of worrying about getting overwhelmed, in this game, your attacks are so powerful that you literally knock all of them back with every attack. Like, you hit one guy in the face, if his buddies are next to him, then you'll end up hitting all three of them in the face, and it does feel really satisfying. Like, you really do feel like a force to be reckoned with in this DLC, so that is pretty awesome. So yeah, you'll be facing hordes of enemies. You'll never have to worry about getting overwhelmed. The main lack is like the zombie crackheads from the main game that you fight. It's pretty satisfying when you're fighting hordes of them and you're just killing them mercilessly and just killing them with ease. So the combat is very satisfying. You also have a dodge mechanic as well. Again, I wish the main game had a dodge mechanic because, of course, you have one in this DLC. I don't understand why there's no dodge mechanic in the main game, but there's a dodge mechanic in this DLC. You could dodge attacks, and this does make the combat a lot more fun. You know, when you're dodging and punching, you know, a guy tries to hit you, you dodge it, you punch him in the face, you finish him with an execution. It's pretty damn fun. Besides the combat, there are also like these little battle arenas that you could take part in this DLC as well. And this is basically where you face those hordes of enemies. And besides that, there are also bosses. This is kind of the main thing about this DLC. You are basically fighting bosses from the previous Evil Within game. You fight that one asshole from Chapter 10, fucking hated him. You fight the sadist again. You fight that one guy from Chapter 6. This is basically you just killing bosses as the main boss of the main game, you know, kind of. So Ruvik is not in this DLC. I'll say it right now. Ruvik did not make a return, which was definitely kind of disappointing. I kind of wanted to see Ruvik make a return, as well as Laura, because Laura is my second favorite villain from the Evil Within. But that's okay. You know, the boss fights are still solid. Except for one boss fight where you literally fight a different version of the sadist who has a RPG. That is the one boss in this game that sucked. But there are two bosses where you fight, one boss fight, which is actually a secret, where you fight Sebastian, the main protagonist of the Evil Within, and then there's one boss fight where you fight Joseph. And one cool thing about this is every time you defeat a boss fight, you actually get their weapons. Say, for example, once you defeat the sadist, you get his chainsaw. When you defeat Joseph, he throws Molotovs at you, and you get to use his Molotovs. You beat that one sadist with the RPG, and you get to use his RPG. The game also brings back the leveling up system from the previous game as well. You could upgrade things like your health, how fast you could run. You could upgrade your traps. Oh, yes, right. As the keeper, you also have a plethora of weapons you could use. You have you have his little traps from the first game, like the ones that would tangle people's legs. You have dynamite. You have Molotov cocktails. You get to use the chainsaw. You get I think that's pretty much it besides the hammer. I mean, you do get to use an RPG, but that's not really a weapon you get, like, right away. You have to unlock that weapon. But unlocking weapons does feel good, because every time you beat a boss, you get to use their weapons by unlocking them. The game also does have a point system, you know, like getting points, and that's how you upgrade, obviously. Besides the other thing, you also have a special ability in this game that allows you to basically see secrets throughout the world. The area that you explore in this game is also not very large as well. It's basically the mansion from the first game, like the mansion from Chapter 9. That's basically the area you explore in this game. There's no other areas. There's no outside area. There's no cave. There's no sewer system. You just explore one area in this game. It's just the mansion from the first game, but that's okay. But yeah, guys, that about covers this DLC for the Evil Within, the Executioner DLC. This was a very, very solid DLC. The gameplay was pretty cool. No puzzles, by the way. There was no puzzles. A very, very solid DLC. I think it was pretty good. But yeah, like I said, the two previous DLCs for this game, I fucking despised them. Like the two Kidman DLCs, I fucking hated them. I absolutely despise those DLCs, so I'm not going to review those, although I kind of am, because I already just did, because I just told you they're terrible. So I guess that's my review for those DLCs as well. The only other thing to cover in this DLC is honestly the story. As you guys know, I don't spoil stories for games on this channel, but the story is pretty good as well. It's definitely a story that does have a cool twist for it, so yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this bite-sized review for the Evil Within Executioner DLC. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, stay tuned for more reviews and discussion videos coming in the future. If you guys stuck by till the end, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, y'all. Peace.